hello from the Smithsonian National Zoo, one of DC's most popular tourist destinations. Every year, more than 2 million people visit this place, a lot of them after exotic animals like Indian elephants or Chinese pandas. And yet, there's a creature here rarer even than those. And depending on how you look at it, it's either from Wyoming or New England, either about half a century or several dozen million years old. This is Uncle Beazley, and the story of how we got here tells us as much about ourselves as any dinosaur. In 1956, a New England school teacher named Oliver Butterworth publishes this book. The Enormous Egg is the story of a 12-year-old boy from rural New Hampshire named Nate Twitchell, whose family hen, rather improbably, lays an egg that hatches into a baby triceratops. Now, when word gets out about this exceptional creature, people pour in from all over to try to exploit the baby dinosaur in different ways. Some want to conduct scientific tests, others want to use him to sell products. But Nate says no. He insists on raising this animal, who he's named Uncle Beazley after a deceased family member, as his own pet. The weather gets colder and colder. It becomes harder and harder to find enough food to feed this growing animal. And Nate and a visiting scientist from the museum in DC, who he's befriended, named Dr. Zemer, decide to relocate Uncle Beazley to the capital for safekeeping. So after a brief but eventful stay on the National Mall at the museum, Uncle Beazley ends up right here at the Elephant House at the zoo. And here our characters meet a US senator who is on a sort of crusade against government spending. He's very unhappy with the amount of money that's being spent to feed and house this growing dinosaur. And this Senator Granderson ends up making an impassioned speech on the floor of the Senate that to me is a fascinating ideological reflection of how so many people thought about these animals in the middle of the 20th century.
The animal I speak of is a dinosaur, gentlemen. The ugliest, evilest-looking reptilian I have ever seen, and it's a disgrace to our National Zoological Park and to the department it operates in. Can you imagine for one moment bringing the innocent, bright-eyed children of good American families to look at this inefficient, outmoded, and outlandish specimen of a bygone age? Do we want our children to grow up to be forward-looking citizens of our forward country? Then we must not let them dwell on the useless creatures of the past, the foolish mistakes of nature, discarded long before Columbus planted the American flag on our beautiful shores.
Nate and Dr. Zemer counter-organize, and Nate ends up making a speech on television in Uncle Beazley's defense.
Some men in Congress thought they'd save money by getting rid of the dinosaur. They said he wasn't American, that he was no good for anything. But that's not right. I found out at the museum that America's the only country that ever had horned dinosaurs. They were all living out in Wyoming 60 million years ago. That was even before the Pilgrims landed, I guess.
So the speech works, and people pour in from all over to protect Uncle Beazley. They donate to his exhibit and safeguard his place at the zoo. For a contemporary Cold War audience, it's a neat little fable of the power of American principles and democracy and freedom of speech. For us, all these decades later, it preserves an interesting chapter in our national love affair with dinosaurs. In 1967, NBC's Children's Theater decides to do a made-for-TV version of The Enormous Egg. And in an age long before computer animation, they need physical models of the animal. Luckily, at just that moment, America had a Triceratops on hand. In 1964, at the World's Fair in Flushing, New York, Sinclair Oil Company, which had long used the dinosaur as its corporate logo, puts on an exhibit called Dinoland, featuring full-scale models of icons of the Mesozoic.
Triceratops, sort of a 30-foot walking battering ram. That skull measures 7 feet.
These were the work of renowned Hungarian-American wildlife artist Louis Paul Jonas. If you've ever seen the elephants in the diorama room at the museum in New York, that's his work. NBC gets a copy of the adult Triceratops and also commissions from Jonas a series of smaller models representing different phases in Uncle Beazley's growth. In the summer of 1967, NBC films here in DC. And after they're done, the Sinclair Oil Company donates the Beazley model to the Smithsonian. The The first place they put it in September of that year is the Anacostia Community Museum, which has just opened. The movie premieres in April of 1968, and sometime that year, the Smithsonian relocates Beazley to the National Mall, right in front of the Natural History Museum. And just like in the book, kids love him. In 1994, the Smithsonian decided to move Beazley back here to the zoo. And in 2007, he got this little pen to himself. You can't tell it this time of year, but planted all around him are the kinds of plants that we know existed during the Mesozoic. So at the end of the book, Dr. Ziemer tells Nate, if all goes well, your little pet will be an ornament to the National Zoological Park for a long, long time. And thanks to this conjunction of big oil, big media, and big government, Uncle Beazley's fate in our own world has been just that. But it's Dr. Ziemer's very last words about Uncle Beazley that really stick out to me. He calls him the wonderful American dinosaur. And there's a sense that in that political contest between Senator Granderson and Nate, it's nationalism that wins the day. The idea that this Triceratops is not just some bygone freak, but a living part of our national heritage, something we should treasure and protect as Americans as much as any bison or redwood. Nate kind of performs that nationalization in the course of his speech on television. He says, I was just hoping that some of you people that are listening would want to save my dinosaur, though now he's really your dinosaur too.
So the next time you find yourself here at the zoo, go over and linger a little while with old Uncle Beazley. He is, after all, one of our American dinosaurs. Hey everybody, Andrew here, and thank you so much for watching this inaugural episode of Natural Republic, my show where we together roam the borderlands of nature, culture, and American history. As some of you who know me in person are already aware, this pivot to science communication has been some time coming. I'd like to thank the folks at Johns Hopkins Digital Storytelling for helping to make it happen. And at this stage, at the very ground floor of this channel, your support means absolutely everything. Every like and comment and share. And if you're feeling especially generous, there's a link to donate there in the page description as well. Until next time.